Welcome to the Good Girls Society, the podcast where we, Jen and Sass, talk all things bookish, lifestyle, and navigating life in your 30s. Make sure to give us a follow on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at good.girls.pod. And be sure to follow us here on streaming services so that you can listen to the latest episode.
Woo! Today we'll be reviewing two popular dramione fanfics, The Auction, the third installment in Love Bitka 8's Rights and Wrongs series, and the fanfic that made dramione mainstream, Manacled by Sen Yu. Trigger warnings for today's episode. So for The Auction, our trigger warnings are slavery, historic slavery, rape, non-con, murder, gore, mention of suicide, loss of virginity, and sterilization.
Trigger warnings for Manacled are rape and non-con, graphic depictions of violence, forced pregnancy, imprisonment, minor character death, memory loss, and self-harm.
And a disclaimer for fanfic reviewing. So this review will be slightly different to how we would normally review our episodes. So it won't be based on the same process because fanfic is not edited like traditionally published works, and these works are created without compensation and of the author's own time and effort. I want to thank Taylor for giving us a heads up, as this is my first time reading fanfic, and I think it's important that we remind ourselves and the community that harsh reviews can be life-altering for an author.
Agreed. And I have not read fanfic since like high school, college. So it has been a long time for me. And I have to say, I threw myself in the deep end with this one. So
Yeah,
this
you
is
went
a
hard.
this is a deep one to throw myself in with. That is for sure. So I know I texted you this, but my question for the week is when you read, do you see pictures in your mind? Like, is it like a movie that you play in your head?
That is such a good question, and I have such a good answer for you. So, me and my best friend were discussing this, and I think it actually comes from the more that I read, the more that I can picture books. So, when I first started reading, I found it extremely hard. Backstory, sorry, really taking this bull by the horns here.
No, you are perfectly
Backstory Backstory is that I wasn't a massive reader, and then COVID happened. I got really obsessed with Twilight and Harry Potter again, and I started reading again. I also got diagnosed with ADD, so I was medicated and could properly comprehend things. But yeah, that's kind of where it all started. So when I first started reading, I found it a lot easier to read books that were like had movies, so I could picture people. But once I'd finished Twilight and then Harry Potter, I then moved on to ACOTAR. And it was like every time I read another book, I just got better at picturing worlds. So I think for me, it came from practice, but now I picture people. I wouldn't say I picture it like a movie. I don't picture it like I'm seeing the scenes, but I see flashes of things and feelings. So things that emote a lot out of me, definitely I can picture them a lot better.
See, I can't. I don't have
Oh,
that in my head.
what do you
And so
have?
I don't I don't know. Like and that's why like I wanted to ask this question because like I know that people can like see images in their head and I can't see images in my head. Like when I dream, I have full-fledged dreams where I'm there. Like if you would have there are sometimes where I wake up and I'm like, was that a dream? Like it is so realistic, I don't know.
Really?
But when I read, I like it's not like I'm not picturing anything. I'm just reading. And
Yeah,
it's just thoughts in a head. Like it's not like a picture. It's like voices. So it's
yeah.
more like almost like auditory for me. Like I can hear the story and I can hear the voices, but I can't like picture it. I can't see it. And
That's
I
so
always thought that that was
interesting.
interesting because I never thought about something like that before. And then
No,
randomly one day, a couple years ago, I read an article that had like brought that to my attention. And I was like, interesting.
that's so interesting. So my best friend pictures like things like they're a movie.
Yeah.
She'll see like the whole scene. Like she also said she finds fantasy books really hard to read because she can't, it's too much. She's like
Hmm.
more of a contemporary romance kind of
So
gal.
it's like too
So
different from reality for her to like fully, okay. Huh.
yeah,
That's
it's
interesting.
funny how our brains work, hey?
Yeah. So go ahead. What's your question of the week, Sass?
My question of the week is, in the last year, besides anything, so in 2023, I should say, besides anything written by SJM, what was the book that like moved you or impacted you the most?
Moved me.
Yeah, besides SJM
Hmm.
books.
Yeah, because it would have been Silver Flames.
Yeah,
Um, God, that's a tough one.
I just want all of the
Hmm.
book recs.
I read almost 100 books.
I know.
Dude. Uh, um, moved me the most. Fourth Wing was a good one because that one made me cry.
Yes.
So
Yep.
when I think of like moved, I think of like changed me in some way.
Yep.
And that was the first book since like middle school that made me cry. So I want to say that, but that wasn't like on my like top list of like favorite books overall. Like it was up there, but it wasn't like top like I guess it was top 5, but it wasn't like top 3. Um I guess yeah, that's probably the one that moved me the most because that's the one that like made me cry. So I'm gonna go with that one, I guess. What about you?
Oh, shit. The one that made me cry the most was Providence Girls. I could not
Okay.
stop crying during that. And I cried for like a full day after. I tried to explain it to my best friend Rochelle, and I
Yeah.
started crying, and she was like, "Are you all right?" Because like we're not big criers, like we don't really
Yeah.
cry around each other. And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, it's just like deeply affected me." It was like this little short story about a bloody fish and an albino witch woman. It was insane, but I loved it.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, yeah, so that one really made me cry a lot.
No.
I love a book that
Yeah, I
makes you
haven't
cry
read that
though.
one yet. That one's on my list to read this year, but I haven't read that one yet.
It's short, it's strange. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's a strange book. Like people have read it and they're like, "Why do you recommend this book so much?" I'm like, "It's not for everyone," but I personally loved it. It's weird. It's weird and it's disgusting. It's like very body gore because like one of
Hmm.
the women is turning into a monster. So like the whole
Okay.
time she's like shedding her hair and skin and turning slimy. But there's this beautiful
Okay.
love story in this parallel like body gore fishwife situation. It's wild. And they're also a lot older. These women are a lot older, which
Yeah.
you don't typically see in books. Like I feel like so many of the female main characters and protagonists are like so young, and
Yeah.
we're well into our 30s, so I found it to be a really nice change of pace to have older women who are sapphic. Like the whole thing was just cute.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right, you
Let's
ready to
do
get
it.
into it?
I'm ready to hear all about Manacled. I'm honestly really excited.
All right. Well, it's a lot. It's deep.
Hit me
It
with it.
is deep. So you want me to start or do you want to start?
Yeah,
Do
all
you want
right.
to start?
Yeah. So mine's a little less spoilery, but I'm happy to deep dive a little bit more. But let's get into it.
Okay.
So, I read The Auction by Love's Bouquet. So, just FYI, there are two other books in this like series or world, I guess you could call it. Um, I can say confidently that this fanfic was fantastic. Like, hand on heart, I loved it. I ate it up. The author's attention to detail actually astounded me. I reread Harry Potter in 2020 and I was pleasantly surprised by the intricacies and the magic system that I'd actually forgotten, as well as the characters and their developments. So I feel like there are a lot of characters within the auction who we delve into a lot further, which is so cool. Like, honestly, I don't think I realized how great this fandom is. And it's definitely made me want to read way more Dramione fanfic.
Yeah.
When I was speaking to Taylor as well. I can't remember Taylor's username off the top of my head, but let's definitely mention her in our show notes because
Taylor Marie's eight.
oh, T Marie reads with a number in it.
I got this. Hold,
Taylor's
please.
amazing. So I did ask her before recording this if I could sort of
T.
shout out
Marie
some of her
reads
content.
28.
Thank you. Thank you. So Taylor has a really long, comprehensive list on her Instagram, which goes through thoroughly different Dramione fanfics and why you should read them and where they're based on the timeline of events. So they are really, really cool. So I'm definitely going to be looking into more of her recommendations because she seems to love Dramione a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the auction is from Hermione's point of view, completely Hermione's point of view, which is great. And it was a beautifully fresh perspective on the magical world, but it stays true to J.K. Rowling's lore and even writing. So even though
Mhm.
it was obviously a lot smarter, it still had that flow that J.K. Rowling has sort of created, and I just found it transported me back to my youth in a way,
Yeah.
but in like a sexier way,
Yeah.
which I loved. Um,
I love that.
I I wanted to ask, did you find that with Manacled? Like, did you think it stayed true to what Harry Potter is?
Yes and no. So Manacled is a mix of The Handmaid's Tale and Harry Potter. So it did stay true to a lot of aspects of Harry Potter, but it also added in a lot of elements of The Handmaid's Tale. So,
Hmm.
and I know I'll get into a lot of detail of it when we talk about my part, but a lot of especially the beginning elements when they're setting up the story is like straight Handmaid's Tale. Like, yes, you have Voldemort, you have like Draco and the Death Eaters, and you have all of that, the Order, the Resistance. Um, but a lot of the setting up of the story and the world building and that kind of stuff is post-war, set in Handmaid's Tale kind of an era.
Yeah,
So when you get to the flashback sections, it's a lot of the war era of Harry Potter. But when you're in present day, it's more Handmaid's Tale kind of era. So I didn't get so much of the set back in the Harry Potter-esque like time period so much just because it was all war and Handmaid's Tale.
yeah, gotcha. Okay,
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah.
So the auction takes place just after the final battle at Hogwarts. So we literally pick up like straight away. You're in the
Yeah.
final battle, but it's when Hagrid is bringing Harry's body back to the courtyard.
Mhm.
But he doesn't wake up. He's just dead. So
Yeah.
instead of waking up and be like, ugh, it doesn't quite happen that way. So that's kind of like the first scene, kind of painting the picture of what's happening.
Mhm.
Um, and then Hermione wakes up in a cave with anyone who fought against the Dark Lord. So any of the women who are Muggle born or who fought against the Dark Lord. And then an auction takes place. So this is why it's called the auction, because an auction takes place. So all of these poor women are auctioned off to magical families to do with what they please. So in the auction, all of these girls are being auctioned off, and Draco buys Hermione for 65,000 gold marks. I'm pretty sure they were gold marks, which is the most that any girl got, and it's because he was bidding against Dolohov the whole time, and Dolohov was like, "She's mine." And it was super creepy, super gross, like super
Yeah.
made me want to wash myself, made my skin crawl. So I was a bit worried that it was going to take on that manacled point of view. Not that I have anything against Manacled as a book, but from
Yeah.
what you've explained to me so far, without us even delving into this, Manacled is not a book that I think is suitable for my own mental health.
No.
Um, yeah, it's just probably like I was deeply affected by The Handmaid's Tale. Like I
Mhm.
watched that and was deeply affected.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm really, really glad that what happened next was a little bit less crazy than what I imagine yours is.
Mhm.
So they're in this like auction, and then Hermione goes to the Malfoy Manor, which is just actually a really lovely place.
Yeah.
It ends up being this like safe haven for her. So going into the characters a little bit, so we have obviously Hermione and Draco,
Yeah.
some other characters that you'll find in this series who are very much front and center, Narcissa Malfoy. So I was so surprised and elated by this character. Um, she was one of the highlights of the book. She was a safe character for Hermione, so she was a safe space. And I just imagined Helen McCrory, like in the movies, and like
Hmm.
Helen McCrory for me was just, she was a queen. She was also in one of my favorite TV series. And I just loved her. Rest in peace, Queen.
Yeah.
So I imagined her the whole time I was reading this book, and she just, oh, her character is warm, loving, nurturing, uh, is the boss of the household. So
Of
it
course she is.
was just a really, really nice spin, because Hermione lands in this house, thinks she's about to be abused and
Hmm.
used like a slave, and is set up in her own beautiful room, with, like a plush bed and a wardrobe and a little library, with her favorite books in it. And Narcissa comes and has tea with her every morning and has tea with her in the afternoons, and they talk, and
Oh, I love
oh,
that.
it's so nice. So it's like having another mother. And I think Narcissa really knew that because Hermione had obviously obliviated her parents, and then they'd moved to Australia. So they were really far away from her. I was like, oh, Australia, safe space, cute.
Yep. Hmm.
So, yeah, I think Narcissa ended up becoming like a bit of a mother figure. Now, Lucius throughout the book, Lucius Malfoy, still a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But in the end, not so much. He ended up being a really beautiful character who had Hermione's best interests at heart. In
Hmm.
this book, I will say he's a lot less pathetic than he is in the Harry Potter books. So rather than being this like sniveling piece of shit, he's just like a really hard person. And
Yeah.
obviously that would stem from, his history. But yeah, he ends up being like, yeah, one of the best characters. Oh, it's so
Oh,
sad.
that's so good. I'm so glad that you got a good. I mean, my book was very good, but yours is you just seems so like happy and like
It's not, I wouldn't say it's like happy because there is a lot happening in the background. So
yeah, that
throughout
they
the
have to like
book,
hide, right?
yeah, so like they're obviously hiding how well they're treating Hermione, but throughout the book, like one of the things that Hermione is doing is trying to communicate with all the other girls who've been sold off, and one of the ways they do this is by going to one of the like shared manors, and they go to this place called the Lounge. And so you see all the other girls and how they're being treated by their people. So like
Yeah.
Susan Bones is with Goyle, and it's fucked. Like, so
Mm.
he makes her give him head like in front of everyone, and it's like it's fucked up. And
Wow.
Cho Chang is like having a threesome. Like there's so much horrible shit that goes on, and what you see from Hermione is like her constant guilt, and like so she's set up in this cushy life, and she's got Narcissa looking after her. Draco is obviously coming back and seeing her when he's not at war.
Yeah.
So it is really sad because she feels so guilty, but at the same time, what Narcissa and Lucius do is they set her up in their library, which happens to be one of the best libraries in Europe. And so she's
Hmm.
got all this information that she can obtain. So where in Harry Potter, they're defeating the Horcruxes and killing them off, or destroying them, I should say. It ends up being Hermione who does all this work by herself, and like Draco helps her. So where we had that in Harry Potter, we don't have it now because obviously the Dark Lord's still alive.
Yeah.
Um, Hermione's doing all of that. So she's doing all of the work on um, destroying Horcruxes, and she's trying to get this information to all the girls. So every time she goes back to the lounge with all these poor girls, they are covertly giving each other information. She's trying to get information to Ginny. It's wild. It's such a good book. It's so good. So there are obviously like elements of rape and there are elements of non-con and there are really, really dark elements in my book, but they're not direct and you're not seeing her being abused as such. There's one point where she has to visit the lounge for the first time and she thinks that Draco's about to like abuse her, but instead he just pins her down on the bed and pinches her everywhere so she looks bruised and abused, but she hasn't been. Oh, it's
Yeah.
so sad. And she's like, she thinks she's about to get abused and then he just like pinches her so she looks like she has been. Some other
Oh.
really cool characters that they delve into a lot more. Blaze Zabini, so he is a covert rebel, but like, oh, it's such an interesting story.
Yeah.
Pansy motherfucking Parkinson. Oh, she is such a good character in this book. So
Yeah.
you feel really bad for Pansy throughout this because she's sold in the auction as well. So she's sold to Malfoy as well. So he buys her and Hermione. But what
Hmm.
happens is Blaze, the beanie, comes and saves her by pouring acid on her arm so that her signature that Malfoy gave her, because basically what happens is once they own these girls, they get like a magical signature, which means they can't leave their properties. So
Okay.
Blaze pours acid on her skin and then they like run off. So Pansy basically gets saved. So the sad thing about Pansy's story is that she now has to apologize herself to become other people to exist because people assume
Oh.
that she's dead, which is so sad. But she looked after Hermione, so it was like Pansy Parkinson's own special way of looking after Hermione. Like she was hard, um, but like she like got her dressed for special occasions and like would help her do her hair and stuff and like in her own way was just a really sweet character who you realize in the end just ended up really caring for her, which is, it was sad. You get Ginny Weasley a little bit. Ginny's alright. I don't know. I
Yeah.
never really liked Ginny. I still don't really like Ginny. You get like
Yeah.
a really different side to all the Weasleys, to be honest, and it didn't leave the best taste in my mouth, but I think it was meant to. I think that was the point of
Yeah.
it.
It was totally on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, Cho Chang. Whoa, Cho was great in this book. So I would liken Cho to Caltaine. She was
Oh.
what Caltaine was for Throne of Glass. She went down fucking swinging, and I loved it. She
Okay.
died smiling.
All right
Oh, I love
then.
her. I love her. And then like the most awful characters in the book. So we had Dolohov, so disgusting, obviously Death Eater.
Yeah.
Um, absolute creep. He was foul. And he wanted her at the auction. He tried so many times. He was so leery and disgusting. Every time we see him, he just made my skin crawl. We had Yaxley, another foul Death Eater. I just hated him. I hated his character. Every time he came up, I was like, I'm gonna kill you. Bellatrix,
Yeah.
just as bad as the books, if not worse. Foul. But Malfoy kills her. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Love that.
The best ending
Love it.
ever.
Love it. Love it.
And then Voldemort was just as horrific and terrifying as the books. I feel like he stayed very in character. Like exactly how J.K. Rowling wrote him is exactly how Loves Bidka A wrote him. Like exactly the same. Oh, it was so good. It was so good.
I
The
love that
question,
though. That's how it should be.
right? The question I'm sure our listeners will be asking is my book spicy? And yes, it is. It is
Yes.
spicy. So obviously we have like the non-con rapey spice, which is obviously
Yeah.
not the comfortable kind. It's the uncomfortable kind that makes you feel. But the spice that we get between Draco and Hermione had me giggling and kicking my feet.
Oh, I
They were
love.
really cute. Their dynamic is interesting because Hermione is still a virgin,
Hmm.
um, and Draco has experience. So he doesn't want to do anything with her because he's like, I've already done too much to you. You don't deserve anything. And she's like, no, no, I want you to. And she's like begging him. But he kind of teaches her well, they both learn how to love each other, and it's a really cute story of like navigating first love, I think.
Mhm.
Um, he also tells her that he crushed on her since fourth year, and I was like,
Oh,
are you joking?
oh, little Draco, baby Draco.
Absolutely love it. Um, there was a lot about, like, there were a lot of times where Draco left. So there were a lot of times where Hermione was in the house by herself. So some things that I really, really loved about the story when it was slow. So it was a slow story. There were
Mm,
parts, so the start and the end were like, like a Sarah J. Maas book where, like it's so fast. The middle was very much like information dump and then spice. So
yeah,
the things that I loved about this story is that they stay true to what I loved about Harry Potter, which was the mystery and solving these issues, like solving the Horcruxes with like magic and research. I loved. Um, Hermione was also trying to magically somehow remove the tattoos that all the girls had, because when you remove the tattoo, you can flee from the property. But if
okay.
you still have the tattoo and you try to like apparate or anything, you'll get splinched. So like it was pretty horrible because you see all these
Mhm.
like splinched people at one point. It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah,
Um, so she's also trying to do that. So she's researching, she's trying to like borrow wands from Narcissa. And at one point, Narcissa's like, you don't have to lie to me, just take my wand. And Hermione's
yeah,
like, oh, okay, all right. Um, so there were so many cool things in regards to like what I loved about Harry Potter. So I feel like this book stayed really, really true to what Harry Potter is and what made it such a special book for so many people. Like the mystery, the finding out fun things about magic. Um, there were, what else was there that I absolutely loved? Just so many beautiful moments between women. I feel like this book is like very feminist, maybe without trying to be. I don't know. Like
yeah,
there was a lot of points where it just felt like the women carried everything about this book. Like obviously the
yeah,
men did a lot of beautiful things in this, especially the Malfoy men. But the women carried this book and they carried the plot and the friendships and the determination of women was just beautiful. It was really, really
yeah.
beautiful. My final thoughts are that I loved this book. Uh, I wish that I'd read all three before our episode, but like obviously that wasn't going
No,
to happen considering
yeah,
how long that they were. But I feel like I got such a treat out of this book. I feel like it was very special and I feel like it was a great entry into the dramione and even the fanfic world. I definitely feel like I got super lucky with this book.
yeah,
Like I said before, the chapters are really long, so just keep that in mind. If you're not into long chapters, just be prepared. But in saying that, these chapters are going to immerse you completely within this story and within this world, and you are not going to want to leave, like with Harry Potter. I'm going to give this one, even though I said I wasn't going to do a traditional, I am going to give it 4.5 stars because I really enjoyed this book. So I think a glowing review is worthwhile
it's
sharing.
still worth it. It's still worth it. It's fine. You're allowed to still give it a good rating because it's a great rating.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I definitely will be adding the other two books later on this year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
All right. So, um, I
buckle up. Wait, let me get my water.
was gonna say, get a drink, get ready. The trauma is about to begin. Um, uh, where to begin? I just want to start again to remember there are a lot of triggers in this book. This is not a fanfic for the faint of heart. Lucy is already under the desk, like, because there were a lot of emotions as I read this. I would like to preface it is a great book. If you can stomach all of the triggers and the trauma and you can get through it, it is a fantastic book. It is written so well. It is a very, very good story. And you know what? If you can make me cry in a book, it is good. Like I said, now it was three. Now there are four books in my lifetime that have made me cry. And this is one of
Wait,
them.
what were the other two?
They were
I
all
know you got.
deaths. So this was not a death that made me cry. This was just emotion. This is the only book
Mm,
that has only made me cry over emotion in my life.
no, maybe I do need to read it. Oh.
I don't want to say the other books because they were all deaths and I don't want to spoil them for other people just because. But it I will tell you when we are not recording. But it was three books and they were all because of death, not because of
Mm,
emotion. This was just because of the emotion that it brought from me.
wow,
So,
that's powerful.
yes. So, with that being said, this book takes place in the aftermath of the war. Harry Potter is dead. It, in order to strengthen the magical world, he reenacts a repopulation effort. So Voldemort's dying, and he needs to kind of distract the world from the fact that he is dying. But also, something is happening where wizards can't produce. They can't produce heirs. So, in order to distract them from the fact that he is slowly dying, he's going to create this reproduction effort because wizards can't produce. So that's his distraction, is to come up with this way to have reproduction, aka the Handmaid's Tale element of it. Um, so Hermione is in this program. So after the war, she gets captured. We don't know how yet. The book starts with her in this very, very dark cave, sensory deprivation cave. She doesn't know how long she's there for. Um, she is basically trying to convince herself not to go crazy. Her meals are always different, so they don't know so she can't track what time of the day is. So, from my understanding, they're not by specific times, and the meals are different. So, it's not like a breakfast meal, then like a lunch type meal, then a dinner type meal. It might be like a lunch, then a breakfast, then a dinner. Then the next day might be like a dinner, a breakfast, and a lunch. That's kind of how I read it. When she's pulled out of this cage, she's pulled out. Let me pull my notes up because I'm going to get distracted and I'm going to start rambling, and then nobody needs to hear me talk about this for 5 hours.
I mean,
So when she gets pulled out of this cave, she's pulled out by Umbridge, and Umbridge just wants to torture her because she hates her, pretty much is what it comes down to. And she's taken to the medical ward. Turns out that nobody knew where she was, and Umbridge hid her away because Umbridge wanted her to be forgotten so that Umbridge could do whatever she wanted with her. The only reason that she was pulled out is because Voldemort specifically had requested her. And we find out reasons why later in the book, but that's what we know ahead of time. So when she's getting healed, we find out that something really cool has happened to Hermione's mind while she's in this like cave. And it's that her mind used its own magic to conceal memories. But it's not memories that you would think would protect her. It's memories that would protect everyone else. So in true Hermione fashion, even when she is about to go insane in the cave, she's not trying to protect herself. She's trying to protect her friends. So the memories that she's protecting are the identity of her parents, the Order's war secrets, things that happened in the war that Voldemort wants to know. And because of that, it makes her incredibly powerful. Voldemort needs those memories in order to figure out who the last living member of the Order of the is. The Order is. Blah, blah. Um, in going with the Handmaid's, so you have seen the Handmaid's Tale, right? So
yeah.
there are a lot of very big similarities in the beginning of this book. Like Hannah Abbott has her eye plucked out. So like it matches the character from The Handmaid. So you know what I mean? So you get a lot of these very, very, very similar details in the beginning of this fanfic that I almost was like, is this just like a retelling of The Handmaid's Tale and like not Harry Potter? Like I was very confused in the beginning. Because it was like magical elements. So like when they were scanning her body, it was all magical like ways to do it, like a diagnostic spell, things like that. But everything else in the very beginning was just very Handmaid's Tale. So they did like they had the same robes, they had the hats, they had to wear all those things. They had I'm trying to think what else. They weren't allowed to have like the weapons, but it was the magical aspect of it was they had these manacles on their wrists. They had just like these little, I guess, kind of like handcuffs in a sense. And then these like bracelets that are stuck on them. And because they were magic, they wouldn't allow you to do certain things. So if you got within so many feet of something that could hurt somebody, it they would start to burn you. If you so like even if she like got too close to a pen, it would start to burn her because a pen could stab somebody. If you got too close to like anything that could hurt somebody or herself. Um, if she tried to like run away, if she tried to um disobey, it could hurt her. They also would compel you to do things. So they would do these compulsions. They would do like these group compulsions where it would be like, I will not do anything to hurt the baby once she's pregnant. Like she would have to repeat it, and then the manacles would like hold on to that. So anytime like if they got pregnant and someone would say something in her head, she would be, I will not do anything to hurt the baby, or like, I will obey at all costs. I will be quiet. I will never say no, things like that. Um, so they did all this like kind of setup in the beginning where they were, they had to be docile, they had to be submissive, they had to do everything in their power to keep very handmaids like.
Yeah.
I guess that's like the best way to put it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then so Hannah Abbott didn't really appear for the rest of the book, but she stuck out to me because the very first thing that she said to Hermione, she had like stuck her head around, she somehow got in and she stuck her head around the screen and she looked at Hermione and she said, let your Gryffindor die. Like the very first thing she said to her is like, no matter what you do, let your Gryffindor die because you can't be brave here. Like there's nothing you can do here. You are stuck. You are out of luck. Let it die. And that just stuck with me like through the whole series because she didn't. She's Hermione. She never would. But like it just stuck with me that like even in such a short amount of time, because this took place in like 2005, and most of the like flashback memories ended in like 2003, so it was only like not even 2 full years later they like it was gone. All the hope was gone. Like, and you know, like Harry Potter, all their like that's all they survived on. Even in the flashbacks, Hermione was like getting pissed off because it was like, you can't just survive on hope. Like, we're losing. You need to have more than hope and optimism. Like, it's not working
Mhm.
out for you anymore, you know? Um, so Angelina was another one that stuck out to me in the very beginning because she even said, like, I'm so sorry we should have listened to you because you find out later in the flashbacks that like Hermione was like, we can't just survive on the hope and optimism. Like we're gonna have to use dark magic to win this. We're not gonna be able to win just by using light. And they refused to listen. They were like, no, the good can survive. We can do it just by using light magic. Like it'll be fine. And then they come to realize like they couldn't. They couldn't survive just by being good and just sticking to like the regular magic.
Mm.
Um so anyway, the memories are really, really important and they need to get these memories out of her. So they end up making her a handmaid and they take her to the High Reeve's house. She doesn't know who the High Reeve is, but basically, the High Reeve is Voldemort's right hand man. He is the highest person in Voldemort's army. Come to find out, the High Reeve is Draco Malfoy.
Oh.
We find out when we get to his house. He is very, very, very cold when we meet him. Pretty much what you know of as Lucius from the movies is what Draco is. And when you first meet him, he drills so hard into her mind and basically like breaks her to the ground. So with the I'm gonna butcher it, it's like
Oh,
Occlumency.
clemency.
Yeah. He like can do it nicely, but it's Draco at this point. So he drills like into her brain to try to get those memories from her. And he's like, so you did actually forget everything, huh? Like he doesn't believe at this point that she forgot. He thinks she's just faking it.
Mm.
And he's trying to get everything he can out of her. And so he doesn't believe her, right? And so she has all these panic attacks and she's trying to remember and she can't remember. And you get very, very cold Draco and very, very like broken Hermione. Like she is so mentally shattered and broken. She can't remember anything of value and importance. She just has little things. Um, she's trying so hard to remember like how she even got where she was. She's got nothing. She doesn't even remember how she got into the cave, like let alone why she was in the cave, like what happened to Harry, what happened to Ginny. And she gets these dreams of like broken pieces. So she has this dream of Ginny like standing there screaming with this giant scar down her face. Like she's got memories of like Ron and Harry, and she just can't put pieces together, but there are these horrible, horrible dreams that are just fragments of her memories. Um, and then comes the doctor for the handmaids. So, in true Handmaid's Tale fashion, every time she's ovulating, they have to do the deed. And it's very clinical. He doesn't want to do it either. You can see. You think at this point that it's very much like you're a filthy mudblood. We don't want anything to do with you. So literally it's done on a table, and it's very like, mm-hmm, we are gonna like bam bam, thank you, ma'am, bye, like of a rape scene, because neither of them want to do it. They're being forced to do it because of a doctor. Um, and it's horrible and it's terrible, and she's broken every single time, and he's very cold and just walks out and angry and pissed off and ignores her for days and hates it, and it's terrible. And I'm not going to say it's not, because it's 100% terrible. um and then on top of it, you have Astoria, who's his wife, who's just a dick to her. And then slowly but surely he starts to become a little bit nicer to her, because he realizes how much she's truly, truly struggling. Um, and bits and pieces start coming back from her memory. So bits and pieces start coming back. She starts realizing a couple of things, and then she gets pregnant. And when she gets pregnant, it is like a bomb goes off in her head. She starts seizing. She gets this like brain bleed of a seizure, and every single memory floods back. So for about, I don't even know, 20 chapters, you just get flashback, 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 flashback. Um, and you get everything. So you get their whole love story. You get the how they met, how the Order basically used Hermione to be a femme fatale to trick Draco into falling in love with her, and using the fact that he's so lonely and so like um just like so alone and so lonely and like closed off, and like using and manipulating that to get him to work for the Order instead of like whatever, because he said he would work for the Order in order to avenge his mother, because Voldemort like tortured and whatever his mother. um and so like you get, he said he would do it in order, as long as Hermione is his during and after the war. um and she agreed to do it. She becomes this whole femme fatale, but in the process of manipulating him, she also falls in love with him too, and he trains her, and they do all this stuff. So their slow burn love story is through this flashback series of stuff. And so it's very hard, because you get this Draco that's very cold and very separate, who starts slowly warming up to her, because you know that, like, I mean, he's human too, But then you come to find out through these memories that that's all an act, that he has to be that way in order to save her, because everything he's done up to that point is to keep her safe. And so
Mm.
it's like this very conflicting thing. And I get that. I understand if you can't, like, those are hard things to get through. They are very, very, very hard things to get through. And I think in my mind, it was very much for me like he was forced just as much as she was. Like, and you see that as you push through. There are certain scenes when he starts like, he can't get out of the room fast enough and he throws up in the bathroom. Like, there are things that you don't see in the beginning because he's so cold and he gets out of that room quicker. But when they like as you get further into it, he's forced to do it too, and he can't get out of the room and he goes and throws up. So every single time he did that, he was running out of that room and throwing up because he's having to act cold. He's having to do this to someone who he knows he loves more than anything in the world, but has no memory of him. And if he tries to say, like, we're in love, you love me, it's going to ruin everything that she worked so hard for. Because
Mm.
realistically, Hermione the whole time was like the main reason that the Order even had a chance to win. Like, she
Mm.
built this whole bomb to blow up, like, this institution that even created the manacles in the first place. Like, she was such a huge thing in this war and then became like a footnote. And so it's like, I'm doing like such a bad job describing this because there's so much to it that like I can't even like, it's so emotionally powerful, this story, that like it's so terrible and so good and so draining, and just like the good parts are so good and the bad parts are so bad. And in the end, they get their happiness. And like that's what you're rooting for the whole time, because like you hate him in the beginning. You do. And then you see why he is the way he is and how he got there and what he has to do to make sure that she gets out alive, because everything that he is doing is to get her out alive. And that's all he's ever wanted the entire, like, I'm going to cry. That's all he ever wanted the entire time, was to get her out alive.
Mm. It
And I
sounds
did
like
sob
such
when
a
I read
nice.
this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do some quotes because it's really important.
Yeah,
No.
Jen, I just want to cuddle you.
Um, it is. It's so good. It's such a good book. And it's funny because I'm like, everyone's like, you're going to be crushed at the end. And I was like, I wasn't crushed. Why would I be crushed at the end? And then I like saw this thing and the girl was like sobbing. And I was like, why is she sobbing? I wasn't sad. Like, at the end, I was so happy. It was like a beautiful bow. Like, they were finally good. They got it. And then I had texted Joe, and Joe was like, because she was a footnote, Jen. And I'm like, she was a footnote. Like, because she did all of this. And like, she did so much. She got through all of this. Here I go.
Happening.
She suffered through so much. So much. And then her daughter, so the baby that she's pregnant with, she gets born. Her name's Aurora. They call her Rory, but it's Aurora Lee. Um, she, okay, so I guess I should go back. So they end up surviving. They get out and they go to this island. Well, she finds out that Ginny was never dead, that Malfoy had saved Ginny. He couldn't save any of the others, but he saved Ginny. And Ginny had a son with Harry Potter named James, and he had saved her the whole time. So they go and they live on this island with Ginny and James. And when James turned 5, Ginny's like, oh God. Ginny decides that she's not going to let Voldemort live anymore, because they were going to he's going to die out. Like, the Federation stepped in. Like, he no longer rules. Everybody stepped in. He's down. He's just going to die out and fade out and not exist. And she's like, no, that's not enough for me. So Ginny goes, being the badass that she is, and she goes and like kills him, right? And there's this great picture. I'll put it up on the thing and I'll send it to you, but of like her, like, with her wand coming out after killing him. And so Ginny gets like her moment in the sun where she like gets recognized and everything like that. So Hermione and Malfoy they go to this like safe house in Japan and they never leave. They're there for the rest of their life. But Aurora Lee wants to go to Britain, and she ends up working in Britain. And so the ending of the story is her meeting up again with Ginny and James as she's like an adult after school. And someone, I forget who it was off the top of my head right now, but recognizes her and thinks it's Hermione. And Ginny was like, oh no, this is Aurora Black. And someone's like, Regulus? Like they recognized her from the Black family because technically she is a Black. Like
Yeah.
Malfoy is part of the Black family.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, yeah, okay, bye." Like trying to just pull her away. Like, yeah, let's just not get into this topic right now. And so
Yeah.
they go into a bookstore and she finds the book about the war and she opens it up and it's this whole section on how terrible Draco Malfoy is. So she's reading this. She knows like everyone thinks her father's this horrible person because all they see is him, all the killing that he's done and all the terrible things. They don't see the good that he did for his mom.
Hmm.
And James is like, don't do it to yourself. And she's like, I just need to know. And he's like, she's going to be a foot. Like, she's not even going to be in the index. She's not going to be in there. Don't do it to yourself. And all it is a picture of Harry, Hermione, and Ron sitting on a couch at Christmas. And she's literally just a caption. So, like, Ron and Hermione, or Harry and Ron and Muggleborn Witch Hermione, like, on a couch Christmas during the war or something like that. Like, that's literally all she is in this entire book about the war. That's the only thing she's in this book after everything that she's done. She blew up, like, the major research facility. Like, she saved millions of people. Like, she did so much. She was a huge healer throughout the war. Like, that was her big thing. And she got no recognition for it. And like, so it's like, just like, I'm just like, oh, she got nothing. It breaks
That's
my heart.
awful.
Like, yeah, she did this huge like suicide mission and everything. But some big quotes for me was like, she tried to do this suicide mission and Draco literally was like, my loyalty is not towards the order. My loyalty is towards you. If you die, I will kill every last one of them. Because Hermione's big thing was she always just felt like she was expendable. Like, my life doesn't matter, their life does. And
Mm.
she kind of like, they kind of made her feel that way. Like, Harry made her feel that way, Ron made her feel that way. So like, he was like, no, like, your life matters to me. And if you die, I will go kill every single one of them. So she knew that she couldn't put her life in danger because then she would be putting her friends' lives in danger. And he knew that, so he used that against her. Um, a big thing he always said is like, you're mine, I'll always come for you. And he did. No matter what happened, Draco always came for her whenever she was in trouble. And it was really like one of the things he held on to was the one time he didn't come for her was when she was in the cave. And it was because he looked all over the world. He scoured the entire world for her. And the one place he couldn't find her was because she was in that cave. Like, he used every connection to find her, to the point where, like, I mean, he was the spy, but like Voldemort was suspicious because he went to every single Death Eater and asked for her to figure out if they knew where she was. And nobody knew where she was. Like, and then there was this one got me. This is where I like sobbed. She was like, I don't want to always be alone. And he was like, I'm alone too. And that was like the first time that they had like obviously sex before, and like he had like taken her when he had first taken her virginity. It was like very forceful and manipulative, and it was like when he was like, you won, like, you have me, you won, you got what you wanted, go tell the order that like you did it, you successfully did your mission, because he knew all along. But it was the first time that they like in love had sex, and he was like, use me, I don't want to be alone anymore either, just use me, like. And then they finally like had like their passionate first like real sexual experience, and I'm like, I can't do it.
Mm. So beautiful.
So it's like, yes, it's hard, it's rough, there's a lot you got to get through in the beginning with the Handmaid's Tale stuff, but it is also so beautiful and powerful and feminist and just like, ugh, this.
This should be a promo. It's right here, just you crying right now. It should be a promo. Somebody pay this girl, please. Manacled's #1 fan. That does sound really beautiful though. I feel like you've definitely put a spin on it that makes it seem more digestible based on the ending. Because I feel
It's
like
hard. It is. And I mean,
Yeah.
I did it in a week and it was it was a lot of emotions to do in 1 week. I will say 800 pages of this in 1 week is hard. Um,
Are you doing HoFast now?
I just did three 800-page books in a row. I need at least a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I was like, I hope you're not doing HoFast now.
I mean, that's my plan, but I might need something in the middle.
Do something spicy and short.
Yeah. Whew. Okay. Well, sorry I always bring the party down, y'all.
No, I love it. If anybody has a go at Jen for crying, I will come for you. I will come for your neck. Jen, am I allowed to ask you what you gave it out of 5 stars, or is that out of the question?
I think I'm gonna do like a 4 or 4.5.
Okay, amazing.
The only reason I'm not gonna give it a full 5 is there was like a section in the middle, um, where in like during the flashbacks when she was like healing him. So there was a part I didn't mention that like he got like so Voldemort obviously tortured Malfoy a lot, like a lot, a lot, a lot. With like the Crucio curse and like um he had like runes like actually carved onto his back, like curses like physically carved into him. Yeah, like he was tortured a lot throughout this as well. So I guess I should mention too, like it's not just like Hermione was not the only one tortured. Like she was I mean, I guess technically he was too, but like there was a lot that she was tortured by Draco. Draco was also tortured by um Voldemort. But like there was this part where like she was healing that and I felt like that took a long time. I know like there was a part like I had like fell asleep for a little bit and I woke up and I really thought I was like at the exact same part. Like I thought Spotify had like some magic that it like paused on me and I was like, how did this happen? Like, but like it did keep going for the hour, but it was just because the healing took so long. And I'm sure there was a lot of information dumped that like I missed that I had to go back, but it was just because the healing of the runes had taken so long because it was such like a big moment. Like that was
Mm,
something that she had to do, you know, because he
mm,
would have died if he didn't get those healed. He literally would have died. And she ended up using basically something very similar to like the Philosopher's Stone to end up healing him, which was a big like thing that like pissed off the Order. The Order was very not happy about that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and led to them thinking she was like compromised and it was a whole big thing. Um, but so like there were like bits that were like just slow for me that led me to not give it that, but it was like very, very, very good.
yeah.
But there was, and I know that it probably did not come off this way to anybody else, and maybe it was because it was like 1 a.m. and I was delirious, but like Lucius Malfoy seemed like such like a gay icon to me in this book. Like,
That just reminds me of all those memes on TikTok of like, I can't remember who it was, but there's someone in like a lace front and he's like walking down a
yeah.
catwalk.
And maybe that's what I was like picturing because it was like 1 a.m. and I was a little bit delirious, but like he just like is like coming in and just like killing, right? And then like he was very mean. Like there was a scene where he's not, but he was like very mean to Hermione and like literally rips memories. And it's very important because it's how he found out that Voldemort. It was like his turning moment where he realized that Voldemort actually had tortured Narcissa. Um, and it's what led him to help Hermione and Draco succeed in the end.
Mm,
But he like comes in and he's the one who actually kills Astoria. And she's like complaining that like her dress has all this blood. Like he comes in and he's just like getting blood everywhere in the manor. And like, how dare he come into her now, Lucius. How dare Lucius come into Malfoy Manor and get blood all over her dress and her things when there's people coming over and blah blah blah. Like, because that's like her personality is like, how dare he? This is my home, blah 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 blah, right? And he just shows up and it says something and she starts complaining like, you need to get out of my house, get out, get out, get out. And he's just like, and like flips his wand and like cuts her and like slices her throat and was like, you're much prettier now that you're so quiet. Like I just picture like because it was just like a flick of the wand and was like, you're much better
yeah.
off now that you're quiet. And I was just like, eh.
All right, Queen.
Like that's literally how I pictured it. I was like, okay. And like I
I
probably
love it.
totally was not supposed to picture it like that, but like that's how I did.
Nah, you gotta do what you gotta do. No, I love that. I love
But I literally
Lucian
put
being a
like
gay
in my
icon.
notes like Lucius killing Astoria equals fire emoji. Like
Fire emoji. I just realized I've been calling him Lucian because I've been thinking about Lucian from Akatar this whole time.
it's fine.
Guys, I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
Akatar is my entire life.
Yeah.
Alright. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We hope that you enjoyed our very chaotic and emotional roller coaster of
Yeah.
reviewing Manacled and the auction. Stay tuned because next week we've got a really fun, uh, gory, horror,
Mm,
spicy book
fucked up.
review. Fu- a real fucked up book review for you. So we
We
won't be
review some
screwing
weird books, dude.
around. Hey, this one was your idea.
This one was my idea. It's okay.
No, I love it. I love it. I'm here for it. All right, guys. Well, don't forget to follow us on all of our socials. Again, good.girls.pod, TikTok and Instagram. And obviously, if you can, give us a follow, show us some love on Spotify. We would love to connect with more people. We love you.
Love you.